What's the next
Yeah.
thing that I get to go deal with? Because I have no ego. I don't need somebody to say, hey, look what a great job you did. I want people to say
Mhm.
what a great job that person did because that's going to make the company run better. It's going to make me more money.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
What true message do you have for entrepreneurs out there? And what is the food that they are making when an mentor and a coach?
I'm going to story. I was working with a set of brothers a few years ago, and they had found me to consult with their business, and they were doing some auto parts things and upgrading some vehicles in California. And the one brother reached out to me and he said, "Hey, can you help me?" And I said, "Absolutely." And they ended up getting a bigger building and then an even bigger building, but they weren't sure about what to do. And I had mentioned to them that here's what, go get the bigger building because any building I ever moved one of my companies into, I was like, this building's so big, I'm never going to fill it up. And then 6 months later, the building's full, and I had to go find another building. So I started buying bigger
Wow.
and bigger buildings because you're like, I'm never going to do it. So that knowledge that I had, I passed on, and ultimately they moved twice. They ended up keeping their old facilities for storage. The business took off. Everything was great. And I don't know, maybe a year and a half later, working with them 2 hours later or 2 years later. And the older brother comes in and he says, Jerry, we're paying you whatever, $500, $550 an hour to consult with us on the business. It's not an insignificant cost. Why is that worth it? This is after all of the work has been done and the business had taken off. And I said, well, and I didn't get pissed. I don't guess I'm not, I don't get upset. I said to him, well, I'll tell you what, you could go and you could start your own business at 28 years old. You could do the hundreds of millions of dollars. You could live through the lawsuits and the nightmares and the sleepless nights and the $200,000 payrolls due on Monday and I have no money in the bank on Friday. You can buy and sell and build and fix and operate and hire and do all of the things that I have done over the course of all of that revenue and all of those companies and all of those mistakes and all of the money I lost and all of the money I made. You can go do that for 25 years. Or you can pay me $550 an hour to help you figure out how not to do it. And that is on a consulting basis exactly the sort of advice that you're looking for. The world is full of young, I would stay away from young people in particular. Sorry, young guys, but you just don't have the breadth of information yet. You cannot learn what you need to know about helping business owners from a book. You can't learn what you need to do to help business owners from watching videos, taking tutorials, doing internet seminars. You cannot learn what you need to know about business graduating from the best Ivy League schools with a business degree. I have never hired, of all the 10,000 odd people I've had work for me, I've never looked at a resume. Or excuse me, I've never looked at where they went to school. I could care less. It meant
Mhm.
nothing to me. I want to know
Mhm.
what they've done. And I will take I will sense and street smarts over book smarts 10 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday because that's where the real value is. So you have to find somebody with experience. So you got to be picky. I go to the gym. I work out all the time. I lost 100 pounds 4 years ago and I've not looked back. I'm in the best shape of my life at
Oh
56
wow,
years.
100 pounds.
Oh yeah, I really,
Wow.
I just turned. I was dying I was having 100 mini heart attacks in a hospital room. I was down 4 pints of blood in November of 21. I was 310 pounds, and I said that's enough. So I
Wow.
went and lost 100 pounds in 8.5 months. Put on a bunch of muscle. I work out 6 days a week. I've never felt better in my life. I've never had more energy at 56 in my entire life. And so
So how old were you when you have all the? Oh,
I was 50. I was all hit.
wow.
So January of 50, and I was addicted to opioids because I broke my back when I was 19 years old. So I have a 25-year opioid addiction because the pain in my back was so bad I couldn't walk 100 yards. That was on November of 21. I'm laying in the hospital, Williamson County here in outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I decided, no, this is not me. It's a long story, but I said, this is not me. I got this 40% block in my left ventricle that I was born with that I didn't know about that popped up when I was 38 years old and my health started going down after that. And finally I said, I'm going to live and I'm going to live by bucking everything that the system was telling me and everything I saw to do. And I did exactly the opposite. I only eat meat. I only ate 1,800 calories a day. I went for a walk even though I couldn't. And within 5 months, I was down about 50 pounds, but more importantly, I was walking 5 miles a day without stopping. I couldn't walk 100 yards without sitting down twice prior to that. The pain down my was so bad. The point being, when I went to get in shape, I didn't go ask a fat person how to get in shape. I didn't go ask an out of shape person how to get in shape. I went and found someone that was in shape, someone that was my age, that looked like I would like to look, that had a healthy lifestyle that I wanted to have. And that's who I went and talked to, because what good does it do me to go talk to somebody that looks like I do? I want to find somebody that looks like what I want to look like. And so context from a business perspective, you've got to find somebody with experience. But here's the problem. Here's why finding somebody with experience is difficult, because people like us, people like me, tell you the sunshine and the rainbows and the unicorns. I don't sell you that, right? In business,
so your reality.
I don't care what you do well in business. I don't care what I do well. I only care what I don't know. What don't I do well? Because that's which I do well will take care of itself. What I don't know is the problem. That self-assessment is very important for an entrepreneur. That's a different subject. In terms of finding that person, that coach, that's why these groups are so important, because you want to get in with somebody who has operated, somebody who knows, right? Doesn't do you any good to go along with people who are learning like you are. You want the person that's got all the scars, that's all beaten up, right? That's been through the wars. Unfortunately, that person's got to be 40, 50 years old, because it takes that amount of time to get to that point. Here's how I describe it. Let's say it's a 10 gig hard drive. We all got a 10 gig hard drive. Well, if you're like me and you were 25, 30 years old, while I had a 10 gig hard drive like everybody else, right? In reality, it was probably 2 gigs of the 10. Now at 57, let's say it's 8 gigs of the 10, right? So I'm up here. But the reality is at 25, 30, I thought I was at 8 out of 10. And now at 56, I think I'm 2 out of 10. I think I've got to learn. So the older we get, the more experienced and mature we get, the more we figure out how little we know. When you're younger, when you don't know anything, you think you know everything. So being self-aware of that and having that self-assessment and the wherewithal, that's why I said at 28 years old, I had an epiphany that told me to just shut up and listen. You don't know anything. And I got rid of all my friends. I quit hanging out at the bar. But, all we did is watch sports, play sports, watch people playing sports while drinking at the bar, watching sports, talking sports, and playing sports, right? That was my whole life and work. And so then I said, man, if I want to get out and beyond in all of this, I have to go find people who don't think like I do, who think like an entrepreneur, accountants maybe, or they don't think like entrepreneurs, but, who can teach me the skills I need to think like an entrepreneur. So I found people that were smarter than me, and then I shut up and listened. So I left all my friends behind. When you're looking for a coach, you got to go be uncomfortable. You got to find people who will confront you. You got people who will tell you the truth. There is no money to be made in sugarcoating. There's also no money to be made in emotion, right? Business is an analytical endeavor. I have taught my managers forever, change today what we changed yesterday if needed. And we're going to change tomorrow what we changed today if needed. And no, I spent all this effort and all this energy
and
all
the
this
companies money. With the legacy, how many times they maybe, Harry, can you do this talk because we have the legacy problem,
That's right.
And
yeah.
Because people just don't want to change. I say, look, in the end of the day, Jerry, the thing is nonsense, okay? And you touch one part, which is very important. I want to expand a little bit more, which is the ego, right? Because especially me, like when I started the business, at the beginning, I started to make some money, right? Then we all entrepreneurs, we all have ego. And this is for sure because we think that we can do better, right? So the ego is there. Now, the problem is when this ego takes control, okay? And then I remember it was in my mindset, that was a big deal. I'm the big deal. Everybody had to do what I say. I'm a big boss here, and so on. And you know what happened, Jerry? So I opened the property business. Then I have another property, which is in English school, was successful also. And then I thought that was the king of the world. And then I opened a restaurant in Brick Lane. I call it Harry Spanish Tapa. Imagine how bad I was in this. That, if you have a Spanish restaurant, thinking now, you call it Lola, Pepe, how are you going to call it Harry? So I call it Harry Spanish Tapas. In Brick Lane, lost 200,000 pounds, lost my girlfriend that I have. Then all my friends went away and disappeared. I'm thinking, I was thinking, Harry, apparently you did something that was not good. Because everybody. So then you realize that when I talk to people about master and business and administration, I always tell you want the best master and business and an MBA that you can have. Open a restaurant in a very polluted, in a very busy area like I did in London, in Brick Lane. You will have no master. You will have PhD in business if you manage to just break even for 2 years there. So sometimes, Jerry, the worst things that happen in business, the worst day of your life become the best day of your life. And sometimes I learn more out of this failing, way more about business than the other 2-3 businesses that I had at the time that they were successful. So tell us what have been your biggest challenges and how you become that challenges. And again, what is the message for the young entrepreneurs?
Well, to go, you were just saying, it's business and being an entrepreneur is lonely. That's the other thing about joining a group. Get a mentor. Either the Kronos Group is mine, Kronos, the kronosgroup.org. Go check it out. There are a lot of groups just like it. I'd love for people to join mine. But find a community, find a mentor. It's not your parents. It's not your brother. It's not your wife. It's not your friend. That's not what I'm talking about. You need to find somebody who has been through it like you have been through it, because to your point, in particular, when times are tough, you have no friends. And the friends that you do have are typically the ones who told you at the beginning you should have never started anyway. See, I told you so. But people tell you I told you so because they don't want you to do better than them. Because if you do better than them, now the onus is back on them to perform. So you got to understand why people tell you that in the first place. They are loath to tell you, well done, and I'm happy for your success. They are happy to be jealous of you and your success and to go quiet. But they love to tell you, I told you so, when you fail. So every entrepreneur thinks also that these problems are just their problems. I've talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs. Everyone thinks the mistakes they're making are the only ones that they're making. So they don't want to reach out because the internet shows, again, snapping shots with the smart. And the reality is every entrepreneur is sitting at his desk, just getting ready to cry, trying to figure out how to make this thing work, like every other entrepreneur. So I think that is an absolute critical part to all of this as an entrepreneur or a prospective one, is understanding that it's going to be a absolutely lonely race. And you need to get your head around that and not be somebody that needs to have their back scratched or job. And that would be exactly who I am. A good manager also, you talked about ego. A good manager, I always say I have a big ego, but I'm humble. I don't forget where I come from. I don't forget that background. That perspective is absolutely a superpower for me. And I have a big ego, and it manifests itself in this way. I want you, if you work for me, I want you to do what I want you to do and think it was your idea. As long as what I want done, as long as what gets done,
I love it. I love it.
I don't care who gets it doesn't matter to me at all. It's all yours. I could give you the idea. I could lay it out for you. You might have just typed it up, implement it, and go out there, and everybody's like, well done.
And if it works,
back and go,
amazing.
I'm happy for you. What's the next thing that I get to go deal with? Because I have no ego. I don't need somebody to say, hey, look what a great job you did. I want people to say what a great job that person did, because that's going to make the company run better. It's going to make me more money.
Follow us for more interviews with the world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.